Hello, and welcome to another episode of Perspectives from the Informed Perspective. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. We're really glad you're here. This podcast is a space where we explore what it means to build strong, thoughtful communities grounded in our local lives, but enriched by the diverse connections, energy, and perspectives that we gather from around the globe. As the name suggests, the Informed Perspective is built on the belief that meaningful change begins by listening, really listening to different voices, lived experiences, and perspectives that might challenge or expand our own. Each episode takes a closer look at individual stories that spark reflection and help us rethink how we understand community, purpose, and impact. So today we're discussing employability, a topic that touches everyone, students, educators, employees, and employers alike. In a world marked by rapid change, AI disruption, and evolving career landscapes, preparing young people for the workforce has never been more important or more complex. What does it mean to be work ready? And are schools, parents, and society as a whole supporting young people enough in getting there? Are we providing adequate training, mentoring, coaching to better prepare them for their professional lives? And what skills are essential today? And which ones can we be doing away with? How are we encouraging qualities like out-of-the-box thinking, creativity, and risk-taking that are vital for innovation and growth? And how has working from home and more remote working affected the job market and our own personal development? We'll also take a deeper look at how employer mindsets influence opportunities, whether businesses are genuinely embracing inclusivity, and how broader challenges like economic uncertainty are shaping young people's paths to employment. The current economic situation in many parts of the world has led to rising unemployment, with many graduates struggling to find jobs after finishing their studies. At the same time, some young people hold career expectations that may limit their willingness to apply for jobs they consider below their status or outside their desired field. Is there a reality imbalance here? Meanwhile, some sectors are facing huge staff shortages, highlighting a mismatch between available jobs and the expectations or readiness of job seekers. According to the World Economic Forum, by 2030, nearly 40% of the skills required for jobs will have changed, and 59% of workers worldwide will need to reskill or upskill. Additionally, 41% of companies globally plan to reduce their workforces by 2030 due to AI automation. While technological skills like AI and big data are in high demand, human skills such as creativity, resilience, and flexibility will remain absolutely critical. The future, it appears, will belong to those who can blend both. The traditional idea that university education is the only path to a successful career has begun to shift. But how can we better support and promote these vital roles, such as skilled trades like plumbing, electrical work, and other hands-on professions, and change perceptions around the necessity of attending university? And as we navigate conversations about employability and future-ready skills, it's also worth holding space for a quieter question. Are the simple things still being nurtured? Respect, etiquette, basic manners, those everyday behaviors that, while easy to overlook, often shape how we connect, communicate, and collaborate with others. To help us explore these important issues, we are joined by some incredible guests who have dedicated their careers to empowering other people, and in particular, young people, to succeed in today's job market. But before Jenny introduces them, I have a few of my lovely quotes to get us rolling. So the philosopher and writer Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Without ambition, one starts nothing. Without work, one finishes nothing. The prize will not be sent to you. You have to win it." Anne Petrie, the author, in her novel The Narrows, "There aren't any easy jobs. You might as well find it out now while you're young." Amit Kalantri wrote in his book Wealth of Words, "Schooling doesn't assure employment, but skill does." Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, in a public speech said, "The more we give importance to skill development, the more competent will be our youth." And Kate Reardon, a journalist, said in an interview, "By doing, you become employable. It doesn't matter what the job is. By working, you learn new things, you meet new people, and are exposed to new ideas." And a quote attributed to the CEO of Mayflower Plymouth Capital LLC, Hendrith Vallon Smith Jr., said, "Jobs are really important. They help facilitate people's sense of self-worth and their sense of value." And famously from Barack Obama, "The best way to not feel hopeless is to get up and do something. You will fill the world with hope, and you will fill yourself with hope." And attributed to Theodore Roosevelt, "Whenever you are asked if you can do a job, tell them, 'Certainly I can.' Then get busy and find out how to do it." And Jim Rohn, a motivational speaker, "Take advantage of every opportunity to practice your communication skills." And finally, Matt Gonzalez, an American politician, "Certainly other things we can do. We've got to promote after-school employment, give kids an opportunity. Raising the minimum wage was part of that. We can't expect that young people are going to feel they can make a living out there for such low wages." So a few things to think about. And now I will pass over to Jenny to introduce our guests today.
Thank you, Penny. Now, this is a subject genuinely close to my heart. I knew one day I wanted to help young people navigate their career pathways and how to get into the world of work. And that's what led me to become an adolescence coach. And it's due to the lack of support that I received at school to determine what I might want to do or what I could do. And as Penny touched on, one of the only routes was to go to university. That led me to seek additional support. So I'm delighted to be able to showcase the work that these women are doing to provide support and give that outreach to others. So first up, we have Mel Simmons, who's the founder of Hidden Gems, a community-driven initiative that connects young people with SEND to meaningful employment and education opportunities. With 15 years experience in the UK supported employment and education sectors, and a first career in corporate banking, Mel is known for bringing together change makers, educators, and employers to reimagine what's possible. She champions collaboration, practical innovation, and the belief that every young person deserves the chance to shine. And Aya Barakat is an educator, career coach, and the founder of Skill Up You, with over 20 years of experience guiding students, teachers, and professionals through some of life's biggest transitions. Her journey began in the classroom, but quickly expanded into the work with schools, universities, companies, and international organizations like the UN and WHO. Through leadership camps, soft skill workshops, and career orientation programs, Aya helps young people discover their strengths and navigate the fast-changing world of work with confidence. She's also a certified executive coach, TEDx speaker, and an advocate for youth and women's empowerment. And Donna Kargel brings a powerful blend of lived experience and professional expertise to the conversation. With over 25 years as an educator, vocational evaluator, and youth resilience coach, she knows firsthand what it means to overcome challenges. Diagnosed with dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia, as a child, she defied expectations, earning 2 bachelor degrees, a master's, and numerous certifications. Her journey inspired the Lotus Method, a program dedicated to helping young adults discover their strengths, passions, and confidence. As founder of Community Thrive, she champions those facing tough life transitions, including foster, youth, and justice-involved teens, working across schools, communities, and businesses to unlock hidden potential. What a panel. So let's get on with the conversation, Penny, and over to you.
Magic. So we're going to dive into the UK to start with, Mel. So I'd like to turn to you. I was looking up actually some statistics from the Office for National Statistics, reporting that nearly 1 million young people aged 16 to 24 years, so that's around 13%, are not in education, employment, or training. And many of those who are employed work part-time, low-paid, or insecure jobs. And employers at the same time are continuing to report that there's a skills cap. I mean, that's quite substantial figures that we're talking about, right? Yeah, I know that you work very closely with individuals who face additional challenges, disabilities, or special educational needs who are preparing for employment. What's one misconception employers often have about this group, and how can we begin shifting that narrative in the workplace?
Well, can I be very, very cheeky and say there's actually two or three which kind of interplay into each other, I think, which I've discovered over many years of working with lots and lots of different employers. There's some common themes which kind of trip people up in the very beginning stages of actually doing that matching up. So one of them is low expectations. And so employers who are not used to working with young people with learning difficulties at all, or young people with neurodiversity, can have very low expectations of what they're going to be actually capable of. So you can be really lucky and find an employer who's really keen and says, yes, I'd love to take someone on, and I'm really up for it, and I've thought of a job they can do, and they are going along, and then they are saying, well, we've got a shredding job and a bin emptying job and a sweeping job, and you're kind of thinking, okay, and the expectation of the employer is that they're not actually going to be that useful, that they're going to kind of be a um almost a social value kind of project for the company. Sometimes, not always, but that's the kind of first level of problem that you can have. And then they arrive, and then they've finished their onboarding in an hour and a half when everybody else takes half a day, and they've got AI and they use their phone. They can't read anything, but they just knock stuff into their phone, and then the phone reads it for them. They can um do amazing emails because they use AI for everything, or they are the quickest person to fix the photocopier, and all of a sudden the employer's like, I'm really going to have to change the job spec because actually I've discovered that they've got all these amazing talents that I wasn't expecting, and so I actually really need to rethink. So after a couple of days, sometimes the job changes drastically because actually the employer suddenly, or especially the line manager, suddenly thinks, wow, this is not what I thought I was getting. And it's down to that, which is a second sort of thing, is that sometimes people think that we've done it before. And so they'll say, oh yes, yeah, we're very happy to take people with autism because they're all like this. Or we've had someone with autism before, and this is what we put in place, and so therefore it worked brilliantly for them. So I've arranged before this person. I had one a few years ago where the employer, lovely employer, said, oh, we've chosen the desk facing the wall in a very quiet part of the office, so that they won't be, distracted, and that they can get away from everything. And we've ordered in a special chair that they can sit on and all this. And I was, what, hold on a second. You haven't even met this person yet, and actually that's not the thing that's going to cause them a problem. They've got a problem with going to the canteen. Or they've got a problem with the fire alarm going off. So actually don't try and fix a problem before you've actually met them. And so a misconception can be that once you've solved it once, you've done it, that's it. But also that people aren't different, and that makes no sense at all, because with your norm your other workforce people, they're all completely different to each other, and one person finds it hot, one person finds it cold, one person wants to wear a jacket, the other person wants to wear a cardigan. You know, why would you expect people to be similar just because they've got the same diagnosis of a particular challenge or a group of challenges? And the other thing which kind of leads on from that a little bit is the spiky profile kind of thing, where they can be incredibly good at something, but they might struggle with things that are really very basic to everybody else that hasn't been considered. So they might be, as I say, you might have somebody who can do their computer work really, really well, but struggles to find a place to eat that's quiet enough, because they need to, by lunchtime, they need to be away from everyone for a little break. And so it's all about the employer recognizing and saying to the employer, just meet the person and let's work with that person on an individual basis. It's very much a matchmaking game, I think, as opposed to answering the questionnaire, everybody going through the same questions, you know, being able to evaluate somebody on a recruitment process against everyone else, against set questions. But going both ways, you know, you need to feel when you go along to the interview that actually they are going to be listening.
Do you think that's the value in a lot of the work that you do? Because I know that you go in with many of these students into their new workplace. Is part of it advocating for them and making the employee aware of what this individual actually needs then?
Absolutely. And also demonstrating, not through banging them over the head, but just by modeling what your behavior ought to be towards them. So there can be other members of staff might infantilize them, for example, and just, you know, sort of call them dear and you know, love and but treat them as children. And that can be really soul destroying, but is also just wrong. It's not appropriate. And they don't do it maliciously. They have all the love and helpfulness in their heart to give, but they just don't realize how much that takes, that robs them of their independence. And a job coach can demonstrate maybe how to be a bit firmer, and if they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing, to say, no, we're not doing that, that's not, you know, that's not acceptable, or just a little, you know, sort of nod, I don't think so, kind of thing. Because everybody wants to learn, but it's about modeling the way to do that, and not to let things kind of go off on a everybody's doing it for the best will in the world and all the rest of it. And I genuinely don't think most of the time people are trying to be, they're not trying to be horrible, they just don't know, because they're just not used to working in that environment. And so that's where having on-site job coaches is absolutely invaluable. And you're able to chat to people around and chat to the managers and actually just sort of put some of those questions they've got to bed that they would be a bit worried to ask.
Yeah, I mean, I feel it's a value for everyone to have that kind of support,
Absolutely.
especially for the young who are, you know, you leave formal education and then suddenly you're stepping into an alien world. It is potentially because you're suddenly with a lot of people who are significantly older than you. You might have not been used to that social setting. You don't know how to show up necessarily. The social skills, do you have it all? I mean, I think it's invaluable.
And I
Really,
love
really simple things like um uh it comes to the we have a like a van, a meal van might arrive outside and ring its bell like an ice cream van. I don't know if you have that where you are, but and everybody runs outside and buys sausage rolls so that they can buy it for lunch. They'll buy it at 11 o'clock. If the person's not aware that that's what the deal is, comes to lunchtime and it's like, oh, did you not bring your lunch then? Oh, because that was the time. That was your opportunity to buy your lunch, and that we don't have a canteen. Everybody just at 11 o'clock goes to the van. How are you supposed to know that? And the job coach, well, that's your specialist subject, looking around and going, right, where's the food and drink coming from? Where's the toilets? You know, really simple stuff. How do I get another pen if I break my pen? How do I get really basic things? And as a job coach, you can ask the stupidest questions as many times as you like, because that's what you're there for. So you have no shame. Whereas a person who's trying to impress on their first day is going to be more reticent. And I think it just helps oil it a bit.
Yeah, and it's things like the food and the drink and the toilet and, you know, these things, the sort of human essentials. If you get that right at the beginning, then you're already going to be on a certain level where you're going to be more available or more in a headspace to be able to then get on with the job, right?
It's virtually nothing to do with the work. It doesn't matter what the job is. You could be, you know, working on a computer. You can be, you know, cutting flowers, or you can be, or anything, whatever the job is. That's the least of your worries. That's the least of the problems, I would say, going into work. I think it's all those, peripheral daily life stuff.
It's your
That's
needs,
where it
isn't it? It's the individual needs. And I love that empowerment, Mel, that you touched on about like the matchmaking. And I remember the advice I once got was, when you go into an interview, you are very much interviewing the employer as well, because it's your decision if you want to work there. Okay, not everyone has that luxury of deciding, but actually, you know, when there's always the opportunity to ask questions, what do you want to know about the place? Like, is there a canteen? Like, you know, what is the, you know, probably these days, what's the requirement to be in the office? There's things like that, down to what you need. And I think everyone needs that empowerment to be able to say, what do you know that's right for you, you know, in terms of location, in terms of how far you're willing to travel. Just because you should be working or need to be working, it doesn't mean you're going to go and not you deserve satisfaction in that.
Penny,
Absolutely. And I think
sorry, Mel.
no, well, I was just going to say, before you start, even their reaction to you asking for any adjustments in your interview is a really good indication of how they're going to be. And so if you've got an interview, I'm prepping someone this afternoon for an interview, and we've emailed them and said, oh, could we have the questions in advance and an idea of what the format's going to be, because it will help to prepare. And they've come back with the loveliest email. Okay, fine, no problem. Relax. There's not set questions. We're actually just going to walk you around. You know, their response lowers the concern for the interview, but it's an indication that they've gone, okay, so he's got autism, so he needs to know in advance. Let's clock that. That's helpful for us to know as well. But they've reacted really warmly and really well to that. If you get a thing back saying, no, it's not our policy to this, that, and the other, you'll know you're going to be in trouble before you've even started. And you might actually say, well, actually, perhaps we won't carry on, because it's so critical that you find the right people.
That everyone's
Can I
on the
jump
same
in?
page, right? Go ahead, Donna.
I was going to jump in and just speak, Penny, to the conversation of advocacy, self-advocacy, and the important work Mel is doing. I think that work, as she's speaking of, and as you said, Penny, is the work of all of them, because I don't work now with just neurodivergent. I've expanded to typical and atypical. And I can tell you it's all the same. When we do interview prep, and we work with them through their value system, because we know from the research that if we align ourselves to the values of the company, the organization, the employers, we're more likely to be successful and happy and content and find satisfaction in our work. So the interview prep that I do as a coach is really focused on the child, not the employer, on the person doing the actual interviewing. Because if I teach them self-advocacy skills in the interview process, and I teach them and I work with them on what's important to them, what questions they're going to ask is going to be a very stress-free, fluid process, because they're aware of what's important to them. So if we first ask, well, what we do, I use assessments. Again, as a former vocational evaluator, I have training and access to so many great, really cutting edge tools that have been around forever. So the cutting edge is now the amount of data we can gather from them. It's affirming everything we know, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. What is good for all humans is good for all humans. You're going to hear me keep saying that, because that's real inclusion. That's real allocation of funds in the right places and distribution of resources. That means that we need to look that when you understand what is of value to you, and Hollander's work does that. It talks about that, and it talks about vocation and matching, but matching to the child, to the individual, to the young adult. And until we get through the process of self-discovery, we're really putting the cart before the horse. So I just wanted to point that out, Penny.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think that's very valuable. And I love that with the inclusion. And that it goes back then to the food and the toilet and all the rest of it.
Doesn't matter what's important to you.
Every
Is
one
it
of
important
us
to
needs
eat? Most
that.
people, it's important to eat. Was that also important to you? Let's ask that question. What else is important to you? Bathroom breaks? You get nervous and you need quiet space. Some people love, I've worked as a coach before, a job coach. They want that quiet space to work quietly. But some are like, no, I'm an extrovert. Believe it or not, neurodivergents have extroverts too. That, and some are introverted, like all humans. And when we do these personality assessments, they really cut all that out, that noise, and really brings it back to the client, not the employer. We're not, I try to tell my clients when they start to think of how they want to adapt to the world to adapt to them, typical or atypical, I remind them we can't control people, but we can control our reactions to people. And so that's the work. Bring it back to the client, bring it back to the student, bring it back to the individual, and we're all going to be just fine.
And Aya, you wanted to add something?
Yes, I do agree with Donna already. She said everything I wanted to say about interview, but I just want
Okay,
to
we're
add
done here.
Time to go home.
So what I wanted to do is that because I'm an executive coach, we do a lot of workshops and trainings for, the CEOs and the directors. And it's always about leadership skills, teamwork, I don't know what, critical thinking, and. I think we should work with them on workshops on empathy, being open to these people, how to react with them. So a job coach is super important, not only for the people coming to the job, to the client, also for the employers. How do they go about reacting or dealing with these people? They don't know. We keep on doing these workshops and trainings on the same soft skills and leadership skills. I think what Mel is targeting is super important. And I think we should work with the employees, the director, the CEOs, in order for them to know, because they don't know. It's new for them. So these employees are new to them. They don't know how to deal with them. And I think that we should highlight or put a light on these, big shots or employees, and give them some training so they know. Because most of the time we say they lack empathy, they don't know how to behave with these employees, but actually they don't know, and they need to be trained. So maybe a training, this kind of training is essential.
Yeah, potentially they want that support as well. Maybe they feel like they need that to get
They don't know.
But it's not easy to get employees who really are invested in their jobs and are happy, right?
Yes, exactly. But I work also with teachers, with the students who have ADHD, who have dyslexia, learning difficulties, and. So most of the time, the teacher, they don't know what's happening around them. They don't know about ADHD. They don't know about these students who are different. So these workshops are very important for them in order to just know and eventually embrace these different people.
And Aya, what you say is so profound, because you say people don't know, but also what people might know could be really limited just to the experiences they've had or to what they've read, and not have that diverse knowledge, because we're all diverse. It's all diversity. It's so many ways that they can show up, and you make the assumptions and stereotypes based on a diagnosis, as we've touched on. And I just wanted to loop a quick background on the self-advocacy thing as well, because it reminded me as well that I think one of the confidence or the ability to be able to advocate for yourself and your needs and what you want. But actually, for me, and what I remind some of my clients of, is the fact that you're seeking support and, working with a coach or a mentor or someone in that shows how much you kind of want to improve and develop and be your best. I've said to someone is trying to put as much in his CV because he's not been able to find employment for many years, so obviously his CV isn't very full. And I was like, you are spending time working with me, we are in a partnership, that is something you are developing skills in, and that's as important to share as any previous jobs you've got as well. So I think that as well, it's encouraging people to sort of seek the help and take the help, because it's not a negative thing. It's a really positive thing.
Jenny, you reminded me of one client I had. So he failed all his interviews because he used to go and tell the HR guy, for example, that I am an introvert without elaborating, or without maybe he didn't have to say introvert. Maybe he wanted to say what he wanted from this job, but he didn't. And he goes like, you know what, I'm an introvert. And then the interview used to stop there. And he didn't even get any job till he worked with me, because I told him, Omar, go ahead, tell them, just don't stop on I am an introvert point. What does this mean? What do you want? So yes, I think it's quite enlightening, Mal, what you are doing, because frankly, it is much needed.
And it's also that going to a job interview, sometimes you're not showing up as yourself anyway, right? You're pretending to be this glistening employee, right? And maybe thinking that's the answer they want to hear, but is that serving you further down the line? Because if you actually get that job and then suddenly you're like, actually, that's not me. What? It's like, think long term.
Penny,
I'd
that
love to
is such an important point that, again, you bring back that self-awareness skill, that awareness of what I want, again, Aya said, what's value to me, what's important to me. And a lot of the work that we're doing, trying to fix something outside of us, is futile, because until we know, even on a map, you have a map, this is where I want to go. But if you don't have the access point of where you are here, you really can't close the gap. We can't reach your destination. So I think, again, that self-awareness work that comes with then the next step, self-advocacy. Now that you know what you want, how do you go about, asking the right questions to get there? And I think putting that sort of all together is the key for our kids, and being explicit about it, because this is their first time. We got to remember they've never been on an interview before, many of them, and it takes a whole lot of practice. It's a skill. Interview is a skill. So, and the first step to that skill is knowing what's important to you. And like you said, you don't want a job that doesn't align to what you think is important. You don't want it. And I think when we talk of the term mismatch, that's how we end up there. When the people that are interviewing have no clue what's important to them, because they have so much confusion about what that job even represents and what the outcomes they're looking for. They have no idea. They think it's a salary. Well, if that's the driving force, I don't blame the kids for not wanting to go back to the workforce ever again after losing a job, because that's not why the interview is there. You're there because they have something to offer that you want, and you have something to offer that they want. And that has nothing to do with anything other than human. That's all humans. That's how we're driven. We're driven by, and when we say as adults, you can't have that, what you want. Nobody gets everything they want. All that naysay is shutting that down. It's shutting our kids down. They don't need to hear that. What they need to hear, and I keep saying kids because I'm an educator. Today I'm speaking as an educator. When we get to the kids, I'll have a slightly different message than the adults. I know that's who we're speaking to, but my home is the kids. My home is right there with the kids. And I'm telling you, my pulse is on the kids, and I'm hearing them, and I know what they're asking for. And yes, all these skills are important, but we need to teach the child first. We need to talk to the human first.
Yeah. Jenny, it kind of reminds me as well when you were saying about trying to fill the curriculum vitae, and that's often like, oh, there's nothing. And it reminded me of one of our tween talk meetings, actually. We were asking our tweens to come up with, what do they love about themselves? What are they good about themselves? A lot of the time it's also finding out, everyone has something that they're good at. They have some skill, some passion, something, and also bringing that to the front, right? When you come for the job interview, that you can sort of say, yeah, but you might not be able to, but that is your thing. Talk about that. Show them the passion that you have for that. And yeah, I think that's for all of us. I equally think as like a mother, like having had 3 children and been out of employment, like proper full time for a long time, when starting to write that CV again, and then someone saying to you, well, actually just put in there that you've been managing a household with 3 children and moving around the world and cultural different
Highlight the gifts.
skills, right? And other, it applies for the young as well. They might have had challenges in their life, which just as well could show up on there.
It works for everyone at all ages, because here's the deal. When we look at motivation research, we're not driven if we don't have the why. He who has a why can bear anyhow. And what the kids are missing and what the young kids are not getting is why. Why do I want to do this? Why? That's the reason we're having a motivation problem in society and in the classrooms. We've lost the child because that's our access point. And while I appreciate diversity and inclusion, I have to tell you, we are all diverse, but the access point is where we're missing it. We're missing the child. Every person has a different access point and different needs to accomplish the task and how to get there. But inclusion is the key, because everyone learns the same way. When you study the Institutes for Learning and the 9 principles of learning put forth, turns out that we all learn the same way. When you look at the apprenticeship model, high schools are outperforming traditional schools because we're hands-on learning, which is the best human learning. And so the connection and the gap is in the access point. The inclusion and the diversity is in the access point. And until we start to teach to the person and hire to the human, we're going to keep missing the point. That's it.
I'm going to move on to Aya now, because we have so much to talk about. Moving over to Lebanon now, where I was also looking that the youth employment crisis is also quite severe. What I was looking at, and correct me if I'm wrong, about half of young people aged 15 to 24 years are unemployed, with roughly 31% not in education, employment, or training. And those statistics that I got from UNICEF Lebanon from 2022. Again, pretty depressing. You support youth in navigating this challenging job market that we're looking at today. In the context of employability, what's the most critical skill or mindset shift you believe university students are still missing? And how is your initiative Skill Up You helping bridge that gap?
Okay. So to start with, yes, unfortunately, we have a lot of unemployment due to the financial crisis, due to the political crisis, due to all the wars that we have been through. So most of our youth, unfortunately, are traveling abroad. So they are working abroad, and what is left are the young youth or the young people who cannot travel. So they stay here and they try to find a job. Unfortunately, we have a lot of inflation. So even when they get a salary, it's peanuts. So they work from 8 till 5 to get a salary that is very low. They get super demotivated. So the result is either they will travel abroad or they will decide to, you know what, I will not work. I will stay home. It's better for me to stay home than to work with this small amount of money. So this is an answer of what you have said concerning the statistics. Yeah. So basically, when I think about employability, what is missing for university students, be it in Lebanon, the GCC, Middle East, all over, I think we will discuss it. It always come back to me with the same realization. The biggest gap isn't the technical knowledge. It's the concept of the growth mindset. Okay, so keep learning all the time. Most students are still carrying this very traditional picture of employability. So we need to study hard, get good grades, graduate, apply for a job, and eventually someone will hire us. This does not mean that I'm saying not to go to university, but I'm talking about the traditional way. For many years, this was working. It worked for us, but unfortunately, it will not be working with the new generation. It doesn't work anymore because the world we live in has changed. And the job market, unfortunately, is shifting with AI faster than universities can update their programs and curriculum. So I talked before about the VUCA word, which is an acronym of living in a volatile world. So things are changing quickly, often in ways we don't expect. It is uncertain. We cannot always predict outcomes or even the skills that will be needed for tomorrow. We live in a very complex world. Everything is connected. One change in technology will lead to something else or change across other industries. And finally, the A is for ambiguous. So the line between roles and careers are blurred. There's no clear or linear path to take anymore. So maybe now you will tell me, okay, that sounds a bit maybe negative or intimidating. So what's next? I don't see it like a negative thing to think about, but rather an invitation. Because living in this VUCA world, the skills that carried graduate into jobs 20 years ago are not good enough, and this we know. So it's not about what you know, it's about how fast you can learn. So how can you fast you can learn, the adaptability, and how you can apply yourself in new context. So for me, the key words that we are going to discuss and talk about are lifelong learning, adaptability, and definitely resilience. So I would like to share with you a small story happened with one of the students that I was working with actually in one of our program. He was really brilliant academically, top grade, technically skilled. But when we came to the practical or the experiential learning, the role play, he had to present a solution to a problem under pressure. So he had time management, he had simulation, role playing, then he froze. He didn't know what to do. And later he told me, nobody has ever prepared me to this kind of situation. I was trained to like get grades, having the right answers, and not handle uncertainty. And I think this is exactly the gap. Universities often prepare our student for stability, while the rapidly changing workplace will demand adaptability. So we are in a place where the students are learning to be stable. So in their comfort zone. So I know that I know A, B, C, D. Then eventually I will have like this result. Whereas, unfortunately, in the world we are living in, there is a change. We have disruption, and we need adaptability and resilience. So this is it. I think that this brings me to something I deeply believe in. When people ask me today about university students and what they are missing, my answer is always the same. It's not knowledge. We need knowledge, of course. It's not only grades and it's not only intelligence. What's missing is the growth mindset of a long life learner. So this is, I think, the thing that we have to think about it and to emphasize.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, the old equation, it doesn't work anymore. So it doesn't hold anymore. And we need to give something new to these young souls that doesn't think like we do. They have a different mindset. They come from COVID. They come from they are the AI generation. They are the computer and digital natives, and they think differently than us. So how to go about? So this is one of the things that we always try to work on. So in reality, one degree, one set of skills are not enough anymore. The current and real currency is adaptability and resilience. So the adaptability or the ability to keep learning, unlearning, and relearning. It's very important because most of the time what we do, we learn and we stop there. And sometimes what we learn in life is not the thing that we should stick by it. So we need to unlearn, and unlearning is change. And this is where exactly most people fail. So I know something and I don't want to unlearn it. I'm in my safe space, my comfort zone, and that's it. So we need to learn, know how to unlearn, and eventually know how to relearn in life. So these are things that are very important.
And that open-mindedness as well, that, you know, like you said, it's not just tick the box and I've done it. It's like you can go in any direction, all these possibilities, listen to what other people are saying, you know, everywhere. And having that kind of, I think that's a skill that's super important.
Exactly, because I think most of the time our students are, because they are in university, most of the knowledge they are getting is the theoretical and the technical knowledge, and they are here in their like comfort zone, and they are saying, okay, now I have a degree from a reputable university, now I can get a job. Or these jobs are changing. The employers, they don't want these kinds of skills. They have a lot of students with a lot of like grades and diplomas and certificates, and they don't want this. They want the people that are street smart. Usually before, when the people were street smart, our student, they used to go to the negative part. You know, he's doing problems at school. He's street smart. He's impolite. Now we want these people and these students who are street smart. This is what we want. So, yes, for adaptability, yes, for resilience, yes, for this growth mindset, learning, unlearning, and relearning. And as Donna has said, yes, for the why, the purpose. Let us teach these students the why. Most of the time, it's about the what I do, what kind of major, and what. How about the how, and how about the why? So the purpose. Last week I had training with adults, and the workshop was mapping my career with purpose. And these were adults and in a very important corporation. And most of them, we had exercises. They couldn't define nor the why nor the how. They were like stuck in the what. So imagine, yes, Donna, you were doing like this.
Yeah. But it's interesting because we just had a conversation. We had a podcast a couple of nights ago on Beyond the Curriculum, and we were talking about that. And I know that you have mentioned as well the need to look at the teenagers who are often being overlooked in that. So from what, everything that you're saying, all these skills are things that we need absolutely to be inserting into our curriculum, making it happen much earlier on, so that by the time you get to leave school or go to uni or after uni, you've actually already had years of practicing that.
I always give this example and this comparison. So I do believe that these skills are like muscles, So it's like I go to a gym and like I go and do the exercises. I can do them alone in order to have like a beautiful shape, but not only good muscles and I can also hire a coach that will take me less time and he will give me the right tools and techniques. The same apply for our personality. So these leadership or soft skills are essential and they are like muscles. They need time to form, they need time to take shape. So I cannot say I'm 14, I can do it, of course, but I should start at a young age teaching these children, then later on these teenagers, about these leadership skills so they will be able to work on this muscle and like gain experience and to add on these soft skills in order to arrive later on at university and within the job market and being able to be employable because they have the set of skills. But they take time, not only with teenagers. We should start with them once they are at school in the kindergarten. It's that early. Yes, I do believe it takes a lot of time.
I'd love to ask all three of you, actually, because I know all three of you go into schools as well and help that earlier on. What kind of things are you doing?
So I wanna piggyback on Aya's, I'm gonna say research because of the way she spoke. Aya, I'm pretty sure you're well versed in Carol Dweck's research on growth mindset. So this is the work that we see now for decades trying to permeate the education system. And when you study it from understanding how to build a growth mindset from the start, like Aya said, and like you're saying, how do we do that? The research of how they came to be and what they found was the big factor was the feedback. The learning is in the feedback and we're missing it there. So that means teachers have to learn how to give better feedback. It means employers need to communicate better feedback so that the learner can do better. The feedback is connected to the learner's on time, right there on the spot, which is why the apprenticeship model works, because the feedback should not come before or after. It's irrelevant, but yet we try to do that. So when we go back and study that research of how to build a growth mindset, what we're finding out is not just it's not even the what. We're not even, again, she said the why. It's not the what. We've been asking, what do you need to learn? What's the subject? We're not talking to the kid. So the answer is, where do you want to go? Okay, why do you want to go there? Why? We have to ask the right questions. Why do you want to go there? Why is it important to you? And then the next question, which Aya was hitting on, is who's done that before? Who's had success really fast? Because again, success leaves clues. Instead of asking, where do I get that information? I always tell my students, resourcefulness before resources, because that's the creative thinking. That's the outside thinking. Who is doing what I want to do for the least amount of resources? Because that's what I most likely, unless you're born rich, which some are, but even they don't understand resourcefulness. We haven't taught that creative thinking, resourcefulness, because we've been hand spooning them the information. And so it goes back to that motivation. We killed motivation and curiosity by spoon feeding. And honestly, I was one of them, the over-involved helicopter parenting style. You understand? It's coming to them from all angles. The very people who are supposed to, and for feedback, you need to be a good listener to give feedback. So we're coming back to the understanding that as society, we stop listening to the person. We're just running curriculum, we're doing standards, we're doing expectations. We lack the feedback they need because we have forgotten how to give it, because it's either you passed or you failed. But when you go back to how feedback is given, there's a rubric. What does good look like? What does great look like? What does it look like? Right? And so that they know what it looks like, success. And then we outline the criteria, and now you go try it, and I'll give you the feedback as a coach. That's what coaches do. No, lift your knees a little higher. No, put this down. No, hold your pen like this. But they're not shutting it down with expectations. They're giving them feedback on time, on the spot. We've lost that because of testing. We've lost that because we can't get the cow fatter by constantly weighing it. So we've lost it because our pacing of how we want to stick the information inside and make it stick isn't sticking because we lost the child.
And the value of the social skills as well, right? Like you were saying, if you're doing the feedback,
you're modeling
you're learning from what you've made mistakes.
You're modeling communication. You're modeling it. This is how we communicate.
This is what we try to do, Donna, in our company in Scale Up You. So basically, we rely on the model of the universal design for learning. I don't know if you know about it. So the universal design for learning is education for everyone. So we embrace difference, okay, and we go to the student to make him an active learner. So it's all about inclusion. It's all about him being an active learner. And how is he going to be an active learner? So when I ask you a closed question, like the question with yes or no, then the student will always know that I will be passive at school. I will sit in class, and then the math teacher will ask me, for example, 2 + 2, and then I will say 4, and then it will be a closed question. Yay, I will get 20 over 20, and that's it. But if I go to the student and I ask him, why did you answer me like this? Or how did you go about to have this answer? Then the student will think, oh, it's not like yes or no. It's like I have to think. I have to use my critical thinking skills, my problem solving skills. These are rotten skills in the back of their head, not used. And this is what Donna was talking about. I want the student to be an active learner, experiential learner. Come tell me, what can you do about it? Just don't spit the theory. Just tell me, how are you going to apply it? And this is exactly what we do at Scale Up You. We do camps, we do workshops, and then the main actor is the student or the participant. He needs to tell me based on what skills he used, be it innovation, creativity, problem solving, emotional intelligence. Where does this social emotional intelligence is in schools? We don't have time. Running for curriculum, for grades, for SAT, for I don't know what. And then how about the student? And this is exactly how we work in our company. It's all about the active participation, active learning. Okay, so this is very important. Social emotional intelligence. Yes.
Design for learning. That's the program.
It's universal design for learning. You can read about it.
Oh, is it UB? It's not.
UDL, the UDL.
Understanding by
I base all my work on UDL because it's about the why, it's about the how, and how to go about it. And it's about embracing, like Mel said, it's embracing these different people, okay, into the education system and making them active student and prepare them for later on. This is what we have to do.
I love that. Active is the key here. Activate, because again, they're so used to and conditioned to receive.
Exactly.
And not to engage. And so in the classroom, we call it inquiry-based learning. And I was a science teacher for a long time, K-8, but I could tell you inquiry-based learning is all subjects. It means you make, and we do it in marketing, by the way. That's the new trend, right? Make them look for it. Don't just hand them the click. Don't just we do it. It's across the board, makes sense to everything. Inquiry based is the motivation. How do we incite motivation? Well, we make them interested in what are they interested about? And so that inquiry is an engage from the get-go. Like, what do you, we used to use I don't know if you've ever taught in the classroom before, but oh my God.
I did everything. I taught.
There you go. You can tell. You remember the KWL chart? I don't know if I'm talking only to educators on the panel. I'm sorry. It's the no KWL, what you know, what you want to know, and what you've learned. Change that to the how. Amen, Aya.
Yes,
It's metacognitive skills and inquiry based. What do you want to know? Okay, it's the K. Okay, what do I know about this topic? Where are you now? What do I want to learn? What questions do you want? And how or who, right? Now we can add that because that's resourcefulness. So how, that's that metacognitive skill. And just by starting any unit of study, any lesson, any job in that way, what do I know? First of all, why do I even want to go that route? And then what do I know? What do I want to know? And how or who can help me? Those are the ways.
And you know, ladies, what's fascinating to hear your talk is the fundamentals that, you know, everyone can kind of relate to and understand. But actually, you know, for some listeners out there, like, oh, to keep learning, to be active in that, but really that can be as simple as being curious, you know, and there's not always the answer about, you know, like, you know, having to learn something can be quite daunting for people, you know, but actually what's that curiosity? And that goes back to the why, and then the how can I learn about it? It's not saying you need to learn it. It's just starting to explore something new, something that can expand you as well. And I think for me, that's really important because, and also from your own experiences, oh, I felt like this, or this made me respond like this. Why? And that's
Jenny, I asked the question because you bring up this point of curiosity, and I think we need to shift the way we consider curiosity, because I worked for Early Head Start and Head Start. I ran programs of inclusion for them. I trained teachers in the classroom how to turn classrooms inclusive to all learners. But here's the deal. You put an infant in a room, there could be an empty room, and curiosity is natural. If you're familiar with the spaghetti experiment, I used to run those with CEOs, Aya, and with kindergarten kids. And I'm going to tell you, the spaghetti challenge, look it up on TED Talk. Look it up in Google. Do you know that kindergartners have an easier time figuring out what to do and do better and faster than CEOs, because they're already coming in curious, outside the box thinkers? And we know the research, and it was done by NASA in 1965. They just wanted to find geniuses to recruit for NASA. Went into a kindergarten class, they decided that genius is anyone who can think creatively, and 95% of the kindergartners are all geniuses. We must have the wrong kindergarten. They start to go and test it out in other platforms. Every kindergartner is a genius, and then they start to look across, follow them, and they realize they get less and less creative as they get older. And what you're realizing is our schools are making the kids dumber. And so the mismatch is what we're teaching our kids and conditioning them for, and what the job market is asking for. And we need to cut the BS. We need to be speaking about this for real, because now what's happening is everyone, the adults running the show and the children, are all in the same boat for the first time now. For the first time, those adults need to go reskill, and so do the kids. And you know my message to the youth? You got this, because you have an easier time being flexible, as Aya said, than the adults. You have less unlearning to do. And that's where my work is, with career rediscovery with children and career rediscovery for adults. It's a lot easier to help those kids get in tune with themselves, deconstruct all the nonsense, and start reconditioning to the real work market. So they have the advantage. It's not gloomy here where I stand.
And Mel?
How does it show up in your space, Mel?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking, the thing is, what we've lost is the valuing of making mistakes, and all the time you're measuring people and you're saying you've got 5 out of 10 or you've got 6 out of 10. You're making those ones that they went wrong on or the ones that they didn't get the correct answer, that's the thing to avoid. And you gradually train out of kids the wanting to do things that are going to give them a wrong answer, because that's what they're being constantly measured on. So instead of encouraging them to try different things, and every mistake, and like you were saying about the feedback being immediate and saying, oh, that didn't come, let's try again, let's go around, let's try again, that creates that curiosity. It creates a thirst for doing it again, and yeah, let's have another go, it doesn't matter how many times you go wrong, because actually you want to get it right. There may not even be a right answer, or there may be a multiple load of right answers, but if we make young people or anybody afraid of making mistakes, and say to them that making the mistake is not valuable, and that the wrong answer is not valuable, only the right answer is valuable, they're missing a massive amount of learning and missing the point completely, which going forward and going into employment is actually not how it works. Because often when you're in employment, you are called upon to face something you've never seen before, and you have to try and work out the answer by trial and error. And actually, if they're afraid to try in case it goes wrong, because the wrong might be in some way unacceptable, or they don't know how to pick themselves back up again after falling over, or that kind of thing, then we're taking away from them, and taking away from everybody, the ability to actually create things, produce things, do new things. You're boxing people in, and you're restricting people by making them afraid of going wrong, whereas we should be encouraging kids, especially, but right from the beginning, keep trying. Just if it goes wrong, doesn't matter, let's try again, keep trying again. And that learning of doing it again is far more valuable than magically hitting the right answer.
Mel,
Amen to
I'm
that.
so glad you said the word wrong, because again, we need to abandon that. Here's the deal. It's all baked into the cake. And we are all going to stand as adults and be honest to the kids that the reason we know ourselves so well and what we like is because we've experienced a whole lot of things we don't like. It's not right or wrong. It's actually the part of the process of learning. There is no difference. There's no cutoff of right or wrong. They created that and they conditioned the kids to understand it that way. But if we let go of that concept of wrong and actually change the paradigm to actually that's not wrong at all. So if you've ever done an an error analysis, what you know is, okay, and I do that live with the kids. I say, wait a minute, you spelled that word. Where do you think you did well? What words look right to you? And then I say, well, what letter looks off? Because that tells them there's no right or wrong. It's just, this is the stuff you got accurate. And this is the stuff that now that you're looking at it, you kind of have a sense of where you need to fix it. Let's figure it out. So we need, again, the feedback is so critical, because it's not you did it wrong. It's, wow, that didn't go the way we expected. And Carol Dweck talks about that feedback. She gives you the words. She'll actually say, wow, you really put everything into that. You compliment the effort. You don't compliment the outcome. And so if we become a society of employers and teachers that start conditioning our kids to understand that it's all baked into the cake, and most of us learn what is good and what we like by experiencing the other side, because it's just contrast. There is no good or bad. It's just, it didn't go the way you thought, did it? Or it didn't go the way the boss thought it should go. And what is it that you did well? What is it? Where do you think you went wrong? Not me, the teacher with my red pen. Because when the teacher says to me, I keep teaching them the same thing. I keep writing the same notes, because I used to study teacher feedback, part of my work for coaching. And I used to teach teachers how to give students feedback. That's where the learning is. And we rush through the feedback. We rush through the reflection. No time for that. Let's move on to the next subject. We miss it. We miss it. And so I think this panel is phenomenal in bringing up these situations and these concepts and the conditioning that is going on right now when the workforce is asking for resilience. We as parents are uncomfortable with our kids uncomfortable. We as teachers are uncomfortable with mess up. So then we go in there to try to fix the mess up and we lose the child, you know, and we need to be aware of that.
I think that we should teach that the parents that the well done and how to congratulate their children or teenagers should be on the journey, not the outcome. Like you said, it's always about a grade. It's not, it's about the journey. I had one student, like he had difficulties in work it was one of the subjects. So the first time he had like 7/20, and then the next time he had 9/20. For me, it was an achievement. And I was like, well done. The parents were very frustrated. It's not good. He didn't have a good grade. I told her, but from 7 to 9, he did a lot of work and effort, and you should congratulate him for the effort that he did. So this is, I think, the problem with the parent. It's all about the grade, the outcome, whereby we should like focus on the journey. He did an effort, so please tell him well done, so he can be motivated intrinsically, and then next time he can have a 10/20 and later on a 12/20.
Yeah,
So
and showing up,
But
right?
I have
Showing up,
parents,
the grit, the
right? We got to
determination.
go back and understand the parents are conditioned too, the teachers are conditioned. So we have to have that empathy, and you said it, we have to inform
of course.
and allow them to see why it's important, what the new research is showing. And by the way, it's not new, but whatever the case is, let's just put it out there that this research has been around trying to make it into the education system for a very long time.
It took me like an adult to accept the idea of failure. We talk about parents. It took me like years to accept that failure is not failure. It's just a lesson. So for me, when I shifted my mindset to like not a failure, but always a lesson. Not here I
Outcome,
like a
journey,
change.
process.
Yeah, but that's
Never a
decades
failure,
of
always a lesson.
conditioning, decades of you being drilled into you what you should, and then it's no wonder that you're then projecting it onto your kids, even if it's not
And we're
conscious,
supposed
you know?
to be guiding the youth, and we're
Yeah.
so confused.
Yeah,
and
but
then
it goes.
we wonder why they turn to the
Yeah.
internet for information, because everyone has these high expectations,
Exactly.
but no support, and honestly, no belief. I have parents who I start the conversation, and teachers. We'll talk about teacher belief when it's my turn, and parent belief, because we talked about a lot of pieces. Mel brought in a piece, you brought in a piece. But the truth is, it's a three-legged stool. We have the expectations, the standards, the society, but then we have to also have the agency, the competency that comes from the belief. That comes from the research of belief systems. When teachers were told you have the low class, you have the high class, and it turned out it wasn't IQs, it was locker numbers. And teachers taught to those beliefs of who they had, and we saw what that comes to. So when we talk about, yes, we want to build resilience, and we want, how do we do that? In the feedback that we give, in the expectations that we set, and in the beliefs that they can do it. Because Henry Ford said it best: if you believe you can, you believe you can't, you're right. But yet I talk to parents, I have this expectation. How confident are you that your child can meet it? Right now, a 2, a 1. So you don't even believe your kid can do it, but you want me to coach to help you. Who's going to believe your child can do it? And you want your kid to believe they can do it, but your confidence level in your child is 0, and so is the teacher. They're lazy, they're procrastinators, they're this, they're that. You just want to set all the expectations, give no support or belief, no agency. So we got to step back and really understand how we're destroying our youth.
But you'd be surprised how many parents still are after those results at the end of the day for their
correct. They
child.
want the degree.
And mental
the
health
faith.
and wellness isn't at the forefront. And again, I just think, if your child is healthy and in a good place,
Perfect.
then the
They're
magic
perfect.
will happen, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The kids are not broken. The system's broken. The parents are not broken, but the system's broken. So we need to stop listening to others and teach the children to listen to themselves. This understanding that everyone's opinion and the experts know better need to stop. You're the expert on your child, and your child is the expert on themselves. And when we start to ask the right questions of the child and start to listen to the learner, because let me tell you, child-directed learning sounds very fuzzy and fun. but not many people really believe it can be done because they're so focused on the standards, the state exams, and the curriculum that we are losing the child. You want to know why it's a motivation problem, why it's a mental health problem, why we have kids shooting parents in schools? They're angry. They're angry. They're told they have high expectations with no support and no belief in them. All they hear is negativity.
Donna, at that moment, I would like to move on to you now, actually. I just wanted to, again, we're moving to the US now and looking at a statistic from the Bureau of Labor Statistics in 2025. Youth unemployment is around 10.8% for those aged 16 to 24 years, and obviously with significant disparities across racial groups. I would like to return, Donna, to that disconnect that we're sort of talking about that seems to come up time and again, the parents, the schools, the kids, the employers.
I hope I can put it all together. I really do. Because in my mind, it's so clear. But again, I want to thank you again for this amazing platform of fabulous, passionate women who just are serving. We're just serving the mission. I want you to know we have paid a dear price and sacrifice, all of us, I'm sure, to get this out. And we thank you for the platform. So with that, I'm going to open and say that in my opinion, and it's my opinion, there are two ways to approach this conversation. And before I even begin, I just want to share mine. Because when I talk about inclusion, and I know I mentioned a little about it, I really don't want to get caught in the politics. I want you to see it from a person who's neurodivergent, who came up struggling, told from the day I was born that I can't. And my mother, who was told to lower her expectations for me, didn't believe. She didn't believe. She's a woman who believed in higher powers. And so she didn't think they get to choose my future. And that alone, that belief has really shaped my future. Because when she believed, that meant I believed. And if my mom stood up to those, whether they had the expert title or not, it gave me the power to also do the same. And so for me, inclusion means starting with what works for all learners when it comes to learning. And if we understand the universal principles of how people learn, it really doesn't matter whether a student is labeled disabled, wealthy, comes from a broken home, whatever that's not what the research is showing. The same conditions drive all learners, regardless of the age, regardless of the position, regardless of the funding. And that's the lens that I really, really, really want to start my piece on. Because great teachers, they always begin by finding each learner's access point before they start teaching. We call it activating prior knowledge for those teachers out there listening. And in career terms, this is like looking at a map and saying you're here. You are here without knowing the starting point. No curriculum objective and no dream destination really matters. You have to know who are you dealing with. A teacher has to know, what are you bringing in before I can start teaching? An employer needs to evaluate and orient and to do all that work to decide, how do I support this employee to keep them if I want to? So the first step is really knowing where we are. The next, we really need to study the bigger landscape, the terrain itself, so that we know what obstacles and opportunities lie ahead of us. And we know that technology and work has been evolving faster than the schools. And that's not an American problem, that's a global problem. And we were warned in 2014 in an article put out by the Pew Research Center. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to read the quote so that you all see this is not something new. And it's from the Pew Research Center, and it was under a subtitle called Reasons to be Concerned. Impacts from automation have thus far impacted mostly blue-collar employment. The coming wave of innovation threatens to upend white-collar work as well. Certain high-skilled workers will succeed wildly in this new environment, but for more, many will be displaced in lower-paying service industry jobs at best, or permanent unemployment at worst, which is the stats you guys were talking about. Penny, you've been all over the place with that, so I'm not going to repeat. Our education system is not adequately preparing us for work of the future. And here's the big one, guys, because we're all following politics and politicians waiting for our governments to help. And our political and economic institutions are poorly equipped to handle these hard choices. So the map is drawn, the terrain is visible, and we even have the vehicles, the schools, the apprenticeship program, the vocational program, the parenting program, the workshops. I think Aya, you said all the stuff we're doing. And the child is the traveler. But here's the real question. What powers that traveler? What makes you go on that journey? What fuels the child? And to me, we need to first find the access point. We need to listen to the children. We need to go back to child-directed learning. If we look at Montessori, if we look at the Waldorf school, it's done. It's already there. Success leaves clues. Now, if we look, I can tell you what the theories of motivation and what we know. It's autonomy, competence, and relatedness. So the autonomy is basically a sense of, your own voice, right? I have choices. I have choice in this life you all want me to live. Where is the autonomy in the classroom? When the teacher sets up the framework, the routines, and the rituals, but the kids run the show. If you've ever been a principal in a classroom with a sub that doesn't know what they're doing and a teacher, you understand who runs the show, because in a good classroom, the children can tell you how it's going. They can tell you everything they need to do. You could be an easy sub, just read the lessons. So when schools strip this away with rigid schedules and standardized tests, and learners become disengaged in the workplace, autonomy looks like initiative. It looks like problem solving. It looks like decision making. It looks like mistakes and resilience. It looks messy. It looks like teamwork, but that's not what we're seeing. We're not seeing that in the classroom. That's not what we've been conditioning the kids. And it's not from today. I don't want to hear it's a money issue, because when you look at the PISA report, no, it's not. And I'm not just talking of the US, because the US is not the one. There's a country, I can't remember, from the PISA, spending $25,000 per child in education and not getting the results. So this is not new. This research isn't there now. It's just you've been warned, and we haven't listened as an education system. We stayed fixed. We didn't have a growth mindset, and we don't have teachers necessarily with growth mindset, because that's not how they evaluate teachers. That's not how the test correlates success for teachers, because the test is the same as what the kids are doing. So competence is the next piece. And competence is, I can do this, I'm capable of doing this, I can improve. That comes from the feedback and the belief system. So build through clear goals, scaffolding steps, and actionable feedback, whether you're a principal, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a parent, whether you're an employer. Learn to communicate actionable feedback. Now, I'm going to tell you, this is not visible in the classroom. I've been in education for over 25 years, trying to teach teachers and coach teachers. And for a while, New York City was doing an amazing job. They hired Lucy Calkins to do this kind of work and to teach teachers. And that's when I had 136 building-based coaches. That was their term back then. And we're talking about 2000, I'm trying to remember, 2006, 2007. So again, we need to go back to that. Carol Dweck talked about that work. The research is already there. There's other research that talks about the gradual release of responsibility model, which is the I do, we do, you do in education, which is the apprenticeship model. So again, when we look at who's succeeding, because success leaves clues, we look at an apprenticeship research done in 2021. Apprenticeship-based high schools achieve better attendance, grades, graduation rates, and college access and workplace access compared to traditional vocational programs. So we want to reinvent the wheel, or are we looking to distract from the real issue of why there's a gap? Because I'm going to tell you right now, the answers are there. If we look at the third piece, which I think we all spoke about, that connectedness, the relatedness, any good teacher, any good principal, any good will tell you, when kids feel like they belong, like they matter, like they're connected to someone, and it doesn't have to be, by the way, a teacher, any adult. You ask kids, who was your mentor? Because we're going about this saying, oh, we have a mentorship program, let me assign your mentor. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. Who is the kid connecting to is their mentor? And today that question is even more relevant with social media, because if they're not connecting with anyone at school and they're not connecting with anyone at home, when you look at suicide rate and active shootings and you talk to those people, right? Or when you read the suicide letters, what you're reading, this recent America shooting in Minnesota, read what the kid wrote. It's a connection problem. It's a connection problem. And we think because we have them on social media, their connection. Who are they connecting to? So in schools, this shows up in teacher-student relationship and peer collaboration. In the work floors, it translates to teamwork, to communication, and to leadership. And when you look at a school schedule and how much time is allocated to recess, to kids just being able to go out there and play and learn social emotional skills, you can understand how the time has been allocated to condition other things and why our kids are failing there.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I'm almost done, but really we need to bring back this idea of the student is driving the curriculum. The student is driving the learning. Because again, we put this idea that we learn a language because the school said we have to learn 2 years of French or Spanish, but there's nobody to talk to in here. So I'm going to spend 2 years learning, but I didn't really care to learn because I have nobody who I want to speak to in that language, and I have no one to practice with. So I just wasted 2 years. So really, where the schools are drifting off course is this assessment idea that we make the cow fatter by constantly weighing it, rewarding recall instead of creativity, teaching the kids there's only 4 answers, multiple choice. You know what? Why don't we leave it open? How about we do open choice again, and we have rubrics to give feedback to the kids instead of grades? And again, this is where I see the breakdown. And to build the bridge, because I'm going to wrap it up, I appreciate the listening, is really to close the gap. We do research back practices. And what's good for all is good for all. And how learning happens is a human thing, not a child thing, not an adult thing, not an employer thing. The Institutes for Learning, which does the work of principles of learning, deals with, and if you haven't gone, I'm trying to put a resource page together for young adults, but really also for teachers, which is how do people learn? We already know what the driving principles, it's clear expectations, organizing for effort, accountable talk. These serve as the bridges between schools and work because it's the same. The gap is not about bad kids or bad teachers, it's about conditioning. When we get the conditions right, which is autonomy, competence, and relatedness, which has to do with independence, with agency, and the belief that they can, the very skills employers want to show up everywhere will start to show up for everyone. So this is the process I use in career discovery coaching. It was the process I used as a teacher, whether I'm working with parents, whether I'm working with young adults, whether I'm working with employers. That's the key. We all learn the same way. And while we can all have this beautiful, fluffy mission of we build lifelong learners, take a look at a kindergartner kid. It takes 2 weeks for them to hate learning. So it's not about the schools, it's about education, Penny, as you said it. We need to bring the education outside of the four walls of the school because it happens outside the school now. We've come to the time where learning has to happen after school, during this, not in school. That's the problem. That's the problem right there. Why isn't it in school? Kids spend 12 years, if not going to college in school. Why are 76% of individuals working today employed are either not using their degree or mismatched with a degree? Why 76? That means 1 out of 4 are using their degrees. I don't want to hear college is the only path. Enough with the nonsense. We got to speak up and bring this to the research is there.
And valuing service jobs as well, like changing it like that. There's so much value in so many different professions and how we can support people
Well,
to, you know, give them that recognition
but again, when we look at Maslow's hierarchy of self-actualization, service is the highest. That's when we self-actualize. Yet we made it seem like it's the worst thing for the world, when in reality, if you want to know what really drives people, it's authenticity, right? That's what gives them satisfaction. We now have the research from brain scan waves. It's not love that brings people that sense of wholeness and togetherness and competence and good. Self-actualization means I'm myself, I can be authentically myself, and I can give and serve others. So when we serve others, we get more out of it than when we serve ourselves. So of course it's service. And what do employers complain about? Customer service orientation. They don't know how to serve these kids because we have parents who have been serving them and adults who have been serving them and not letting them struggle. But we want to know where the motivation is and where the curiosity is. We beat it out of them. That's where it is.
Well, I think, Donna, I agree with lots of that. I do think now, moving on from the disconnect, I would like to know from you, what gives you hope right now when it comes to young
Oh my God, I'm so high. It's not hope, it's competence. Listen, I know they can. Forget it. I was in the classroom. I was it. What gives me hope is that I'm authentic, that I came through with teacher expectation. Listen, dyslexic, dysgraphic, dyscalculia. I'm disabled in reading, writing, and mathematics. What kind of expectations do you think that my teachers had? None. So again, I just happened to be born in 1975, the same year that they deinstitutionalized in America and took me out of the wherever I should have gone had I not been. So you want to know what gives me hope? I don't know. What gives me drive is that I've been there, I've done that, and I actually see what works. And I've created programs. Again, I was hired as a consultant for New York City's toughest schools, where the 5% that nobody can handle. And I wrote the framework, and it was such a success. It went across 36 suspension centers across New York City and changed what everyone believed about these kids.
So anything
That's
is
what gives
possible,
me
right?
hope. People like you give me hope because you let us come out. Listen, look me up, my old name. I was, again, whistleblowers. They're my heroes. We need to come out. We need to come out. And we've been trying. We've been trying to fix it from the inside. But here's the deal. We were fired, we were demoted, we were exited out of the system, many of us. And some of us just left because we thought,
That's the
this isn't
sad
it.
part.
This
Yeah.
isn't it. So it's not new. There's people like all of us on this panel that have been fighting the good fight for the kids for a long time. But the difference is that now they're listening, because what we've been saying for a very long time is we're in the wrong trajectory. And it wasn't me saying it as a student, recognizing like, whoa, this is not. So again, we learn not from our mistakes. When we experience what doesn't serve us, and we take time to understand it, what I discovered as a person of neurodivergent individuals, because now we're at 50-60% of people being neurodivergent with this new inclusion, and that's rightfully so. What it told us is that the model was built for a certain type of learner, but if we, instead of all this diversity division, if we just step back inclusively as an inclusion specialist, this is what I do, and look at what works for all humans, we might have a lot easier time fixing this problem, because it's so simple. It's so simple. It's just nobody wants to do simple, because the allocation of funds, as a person who ran school budgets, is the problem. It's not a lack of funding. It's not socioeconomic. It's not the house. It's teacher and parent expectations, teacher and parent beliefs, and the supports and scaffolds we give these kiddos. That's what, and do I have hope? The reason I have hope is because I do this for a living. I've never left the classroom. The reason I don't have all those accolades and all those accomplishments, because I haven't left the heartbeat of the students for a bit. The whole time, I'm always in there. I'm always with the kids. I'm always with the kids. That's where I feel at home. And so that bridge to the parents, to the adults, which comes now with my career, coaching and the program that I've brought in the parents, because I've been trying to talk to teachers and I've been doing teacher workshops all my life. So at this point, the hope is that once I get the parents and the children to understand it's not about, there's no expectations that they'll tell me what they need. I have the skills to listen and the techniques as a coach. I run 5 free through my nonprofit parent workshops. Parents as life coaches. That's that simple. You're it. You're the life coach. Let me teach you what skills we were taught in coaching, which you know what they are? They're the Socratic method of questioning that Socrates died for. You know why he died for? Because he was corrupting the youth. He was getting them to ask the right questions. And do you know what percentage of, they've shut that study down. Do you know what percentage of, in a classroom of children, questions to teacher question ratio? Anyone? Guess. Throw it out there, panel. Please entertain me.
50%.
20%.
Do it. I challenge you.
20%.
Someone else, give it to me. Let me hear you, Mel. I know you're in there.
5%, 10%
5?
maybe.
5? Okay, anyone else wants to take a shot?
I would say 10.
1 to 2%.
Wow.
Okay. So how are we supposed to raise critical thinkers? And how do we trust our schools to build lifelong learners in a place they hate to go to learn? And maybe what we're doing is teaching them that learning only looks one way, and that's the problem.
Aya, what about you? What gives you hope for the future?
First of all, Donna gives me hope because yes, I will tell you why. Because after 24 years of working in schools and universities, I have noticed that the people who are different, okay, like Donna and all these different students who didn't make it at school, who were demotivated, demoted, disregarded, or who sometimes left school and later on in life they made it. The people, the other one who were super bright, they were just employees. The other one are entrepreneurs. Now, if you look at where we are going in the future, it's the future for entrepreneurs. It's about creativity. It's about what you said before, thinking outside the box. It's about innovation. This is about it. This is the future. And people like Donna and the people who think outside the box and who have like this innovation and creativity, these are the ones who will be succeeding. This is why I have hope, because things are changing. They are changing, and schools and universities cannot do anything about it. I'm sorry, schools. I'm sorry, universities.
Movement.
Why should we? We have the kids 8 hours a day. Why should we take more from them in time? Come on. And Aya, please understand, coming from Lebanon, you give me hope too, sister. And I just want to say I love you.
And Mel, what about you? Some hope for the future?
I think my hope is founded in the fact that people are becoming dissatisfied with the way things have always been, and someone said to me the other day, in our classrooms look the same now in the UK as they did in Victorian times, which is hundreds of years ago. You know, like that you still see the people sitting in rows facing the front, and the person at the front telling them what they should be thinking and what they should be doing.
Same stuff as well. My 11-year-old daughter, I'm like, I learned that, and that was like how long
Exactly.
ago?
But I think the hope for the future is that people are recognizing the fact that actually it's that it's not satisfactory. We can't do that anymore. And so the hope is that we're recognizing the system's broken. And therefore there's people working on trying to fix it. And actually that's a really important thing, because if people are satisfied with what they're getting, and all the time that the percentage of people coming out the other end is high enough in their opinion, then they won't change it. But I think we're now getting to the stage where there's so many people dropping out and so many people not making what they consider to be success. Things have got to change, and my hope is founded in the fact that there's enough people who are out of the system for it to actually matter, and for them to have to do something about it.
Yeah,
that's how we came across you all, because you know, okay, we're outreaching, but there is this, you know, places like LinkedIn and social media has such positive platforms for people to share the work they're doing and the opportunities that they're giving and the challenges that they're shining a light on. And, you know, we're grateful for those platforms to have connected us today. But I also think for any of our listeners or anyone else, like, be curious, look out there. If you think something, there'll be like-minded people, you know, hear different perspectives. You might not agree with it, but that's exactly our motivations to do it, because then you can really just continue to learn, you know, because we've touched on so
Jenny,
much.
with that, I just want to piggyback on that message because it's so important. When I went to say we're not being heard, and right now when I speak to my students and my coaching, because I do academic success coaching as well, I used to do what Mel was doing in terms of career, you know, coaching and that work, but now we need to remember, Jenny, that they're not getting that information, because I still have teachers when when they're not teaching kids LinkedIn communication. They're teaching them essays and book reports still. And I say, when was the last time you wrote a book report about a book you enjoyed? Come on, what are we doing here? So communications, which is the future of has changed. How we communicate has changed. They can't even find us on LinkedIn because the teachers are telling them ChatGPT is bad, LinkedIn, social media is bad. Instead of saying, how do we bring ethics into the conversation? How do we bring, when we talk about AI and ChatGPT, ethics into the classroom instead of telling them don't use it, it's a bad tool, when you know very well as a teacher that your job is to prepare anyone for any job. You create the lawyers, you create the doctors, you create the marketers, you create, how dare you turn any of those tools and make them bad? You don't get to choose. What you get is to inform the kid of how that tool can be used, because even a hammer can be used wrong and kill a person. But we don't need to say that all hammers are bad. We need to help them think critically, know how to use the tools so they can make decisions. But we're not doing that. We have no autonomy in the classroom. We've lost that.
So much of what we've spoken about today, just to plug for our previous episode, which was Beyond the Curriculum, and it was with a lot of outdoor educators and mindset coaches, but just so much that we touched on as well. And this is why it's probably one of the most exciting topics we started it as education, thought we'd broaden out to knowledge, but thankfully it's welcomed these conversations today.
Yeah, and amazing people like you who just energize it, and you just think if there's people like you out there who are also so concerned about the youth, and there is hope, and just keep on. It's the only way forward.
Very passionate, and it's a life mission. I was born into it, and that's what I want. Again, I know we'll get to the youth, but that's the point of errors and mistakes. Mel was saying you're being made, and I don't mean in the mobster kind of way. You're being made. You were a human being before you were a human doing. So just be, and let's all allow them to, because that's where the safe space is to learn. If we stop creating safe spaces, where is learning going to happen?
Absolutely. And on that note, we are going to conclude with our tween question for this podcast today, which is, how can we learn real life job skills if we're still in school and we're not allowed to work yet? I'm aware that's quite a big question, but maybe you could just give maybe just one suggestion that might help in that suggestion. Do you want to start, Aya?
I can start, as I work a lot with youth and they ask me this one. I think one thing they can do is volunteering. So the volunteering is like something that first of all is free of charge. Second, you don't have to be outside school or 18 years old to do it. And then you can start it at a young age. And definitely in volunteering, you have all these, skills that will prepare you eventually to the job market. So you are going to meet people, be introduced to other people, then communication, public speaking, problem solving, all these leadership skills and soft skills, you will find them there. So I think volunteering is one thing they can do, and it will prepare them for the jobs of tomorrow.
I love that. And that can also give them amazing reward that they might not be expecting that work might bring back,
Exactly.
So, yeah,
Exactly.
amazing. What about you, Mel?
I've got a really unpopular one. Chores.
I love it.
Chores. Doing the stuff around the house.
Responsibility,
Getting involved, being part of delivering the family, being part of delivering the house, making sure everything runs right. there's nothing like it to help you to learn, to make mistakes, to problem solve, to do things with other people, to do things you don't want to do, to show up on time, to have to do things when you don't really want to. It's such a really good way to learn. And we, at our peril, we take our kids out and take them all over the place, and clubs this, do that, do the other, and then they come home and they're too tired to help out with the cooking, and then they go off to university, and oh my word, they can only take away because they can't cook. And actually being able to run a house and be able to do chores in the indoors, outdoors, help other people, all those attitudes, and noticing when things need doing and just getting on with it. Massive employability skills. You are head and shoulders above other people going into employment if you are a willing person helping out in the house.
I'm playing this on repeat to my daughter this evening.
But I love it. I really didn't expect that answer, Mel. But I absolutely love it, and it's something that you know, sharing a bit personally here. I was having a moan about my husband earlier, as you do, you know, you have to. And my friend was like, you know, she actually suggested do a, you know, like chore responsibility chart and include him on it. And she said, but for the children, and I do it already, but it's not formal. But she was like, but actually the whole family is responsible for the house, and to have that, you know, ownership and responsibility, you know, it's that was completely unexpected, but I love it. It's very very linked to.
And Donna?
Thank you so much. So exciting. So as a coach, I'm not in the business of giving kids advice or parents or anyone advice, you know, but I will put out there to the youth that the top 10 skills employers want to see: analytical and thinking, creative thinking, resilience, flexibility, motivation and self-awareness, curiosity and lifelong learning, technology and literacy, technological literacy, dependability and attention to details, empathy and active listening. And let's not forget, let me see where I put that. Let's not forget leadership and social influence, collaboration and teamwork. So what I'm going to leave my clients or students or listeners or parents with is that if you look at that and you look at, you should be very positive and happy, because none of those are necessarily tied to a subject or a particular career type. It's really what all humans who want to be successful in this job force need to know. How they get it, that's where I go back to resourcefulness, not resources, because again, learning technological literacy, they got this in the bag. Curious and lifelong learning, it's in you. It's in you. You already have it. You just have to ignite it. Motivation and self-awareness, stand still, sit with yourself, do some of those personality assessments to get to know yourself first and what drives and motivates you. Resilience and flexibility is the only way to gain that, is to fail as much as you can, collect as much data of what you don't like, because you're going to become amazing at knowing yourself and what you do like. So don't avoid it. It's the opportunity to shape and sharpen your skills. Creative thinking, just spend more time daydreaming and envisioning your future. It works for sports because they tell you to mental rehearse yourself. That's what in psychology and in the coach I do. The coaching, what is your lifestyle? See it as much, visit that place, that lifestyle that you see for yourself as an adult, visit it and daydream into it as much as you can to remind you your why, because that's what's going to drive the creative ways of how to get there. And then the analytical thinking, you're doing it already. You're sifting through this data. You're figuring out what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Once you get that down packed, doing it outside of you is going to become super important. So my advice is be authentic, be yourself. And what you think is important to you is more important than anyone else's, including your parents, including your teachers, nobody's an expert on you. You're the expert on you. They're the guides to help ask the right questions to get you to find your own answer. And anyone that approaches you differently, you see these skills that employers want, go get them. You don't need the teachers, you don't need the parents, you don't need resources. They're not that complicated. They're not. Find a way. You'll get there.
Feeling
It's
so
baked into
empowered
the
now.
cake. That's it. I'm
With all
going
that
to bed
empowerment-
now.
With all that
I'm going to
empowerment
bed,
now.
guys.
With all that empowerment, I want to thank you so very much to all of you today, Mel, Donna, and Aya, for really sharing everything that you shared with us today. I mean, the important work that you're doing for the youth, it's just amazing, making the world a more inclusive, human-centered, and future-ready place. Thank you also to our listeners for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider following, sharing, or leaving a review. Perspectives is all about these kind of conversations. They challenge us to think differently, and we'd love for you to be a part of that. Until next time, stay curious, be resilient, think out of the box, and keep informing those perspectives.